I'm Jen, and this is my son,
Benji.
and we are going to tell you a story of my horseback riding adventure. When I was a little girl, my mom bought us a horse, and her name was Sweetie, and she was a black and brown Morgan. She had a chocolate brown fur with black hair and black mane and tail. In retrospect, my mom probably should have bought maybe a calm, older horse as our first horse, but not knowing very much about horses, she didn't know, and we bought Sweetie, who was a young, flighty horse, and I knew nothing about horseback riding, so Mom put me in horseback riding lessons at the stable where we were boarding Sweetie. At this stable, there were lots of other horses and lots of other children taking horseback riding lessons as well. At the end of the year, they put on a big show for all the children to show off what they had learned, and there were prizes to be won and all different kinds of events you could compete in. I was learning English dressage, which is the fancy kind of horseback riding with the big black hat and the big black boots and the jodhpurs and the white shirt and the little coat, and you go and you make your horse do all sorts of fancy prancy work, footwork and things like that. And you also ride them and do special footwork with the horse as well. And I wasn't very good at it, and Sweetie wasn't very good at it, and I was very nervous about going in the show, but I wanted to do a very good job. So on the day of the event, Sweetie and I were standing next to the barn, and we were waiting in line with all of the other horses to go in the corral where we were going to have our turn in front of the judges. And I shouldn't have been in between the barn and Sweetie, but that's where I was standing, and another horse walked by, and Sweetie got spooked, and she jumped up in the air and she clamped down on my foot with her big hoof, and she broke all my toes. And I started screaming, and one of the adults ran over and picked me up and carried me to the nearest house. So they took me, we were out in the country, there was no hospital nearby or doctor. They took me to the nearest house, and they tried to pull off my boot, and they pulled, and they couldn't because my toes were swollen and my foot was swollen so bad from being stepped on. They weren't steel-toed boots. And they finally got it off, and they ran the faucet in the kitchen, and they put my toes underneath the cold water, and someone looked at my foot and said, "Yeah, all your toes are broken." So they were still intact, but they weren't doing well. And I said, "Don't take me to the hospital, don't take me to the hospital," because I didn't want to miss the show. I wanted to do a good job, and I wanted to go in, and I was so nervous, and I had practiced so much, and I didn't want to miss it. And my parents said, "Well, we can take you to the hospital, but they're probably not going to be able to do much for you anyway, because they can't put a cast on broken toes." And I said, "Please, please, please, I really want to go in the show." And they said, "Oh, okay." So they took my foot, and then they took a plastic garbage bag, and they filled it with ice, and they wrapped it around my foot, and then they wrapped my ankle with duct tape, and then someone picked me up and put me back on the horse, and then I went in for my turn to ride in the show. And I rode around with my foot stuck out in the air on the side with ice all in the bag and a plastic garbage bag with all my fancy clothes on. And so I competed in all of my classes that I was supposed to do. And at the end of the day, I got my award. I got 4th place, so I didn't do a very good job. I was not a very good horseback rider, and Sweetie was not the best student either. But the moral of the story is that we did our best, and despite the fact that we had an accident, we didn't give up, and we tried to do our best anyway. And that's my horseback riding adventure. The end. Thank you, Benji.